We're through 10 weeks, and it's time to start placing teams again, doing our weekly power rankings. Mike, we ready to do this thing?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. This is We Are the Game. I'm Luke, and that's Michael. And today we're going to update our power rankings from last week, taking in last week's games into account and kind of getting a feel for what teams are now. There's been plenty of news. There should be a good amount of movement. We're using the tier list tool. We're going off where we ended last week, and we're just going to update it. This is where we stopped last week, and it should be interesting. We're going to go AFC and then NFC. We're going to go never eat shredded wheat, if you know the reference. So here we go. Starting with the AFC North, I think I got to, after this kind of not wacky loss, but ugly loss, I got to put Pittsburgh back down at like the tail end of playoff teams. Like they're still set to be in the playoffs because their division has underwhelmed so much this year, but. Yeah. I don't know that I'd put them in front of either of the teams. Like, I don't know that I'd pick them against either of those teams. I know they beat the Chargers. I get it. But they did not show out very well at all this last week. So, see if they can right that ship. Time will tell. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing with the Steelers. But right now, they've got the Baltimore Ravens. Kind of chasing them pretty hard right now. Kind of coming back ever since they got Lamar back. Their defense has looked a bit better. Again, I don't know that I'd put them in the best defense in the country where they ascended to at the tail end of last year. But they have definitely continued to trend upward at a pretty fantastic trajectory. Obviously, from 1-5 to 4-5 is pretty solid. So I'm ready to move Baltimore up all the way past all these teams. And in fact, we're just going to put them into this bracket by themselves for now, which is just – it's not just about their record, it's how they look right now. And with Lamar back, they look like they could contend with a lot of teams. So we'll see. But for the moment, I'm pretty happy with them right there. Bengals, I believe they're coming off of their bye, but they're going to get back to it. The word on the street is that Joe Burrow could come back relatively soon, but I haven't seen anything suggesting that he's going to be playing this week. So for now, I'm tempted to just leave the Bengals right where they are. Show me something with Joe Burrow. Show me some renewed vigor or whatever, something. And you might go on a similar track as the Bengals and knock the Steelers right out of that spot. So we'll see. The Browns had an ugly loss against the Jets where the Jets got 2 special teams touchdowns. Otherwise, the Browns would have won this. I actually like a little bit of what I see from Dylan Gabriel, but I still feel like right now they're playing themselves into the top 10 picks of the draft. So I think that they're probably in the right place, right there with the Raiders. It's just about right. Obviously, there will be 5 teams that end up in the top 10 picks, in pick 6 through 10. But for the moment, I think these are the only 2 that I'm really confident are going to be in there. Probably the Cardinals too, sadly. But anyway. What did you think of the AFC North this last week?
Yeah, I mean, they're an odd division, right? It's like I think we've waited for the Steelers to really capitalize on this time where Burrows has been out. The Ravens have certainly not put themselves in any capacity whatsoever. And I feel like they ultimately have not really taken that and run with it. So it's already a close division. And like you said, the trajectories, the Steelers are thinking more flatline, like they'll win a game, lose a game, win a game. Yeah, and I agree. I think there's a real chance that the Ravens end up taking the 4 position in this overall. The Bengals and the Browns continue to be their normal polar opposites. Beautiful defense, beautiful offense, but nothing working on the other side of the ball. So no, I think that this still makes the most sense to me the way you've already got it. I don't think I would change much of anything from how you live it here.
Okay. Well, yeah, they're still fun to watch. There's still question marks again with returning quarterbacks that are actually good quarterbacks. Right. That can really change a lot of stuff. So again, we'll see what happens with Joe Burrow in particular, if that team can kind of turn a corner. But it's getting late. It's already getting into week 11, so there's not as much time left as some teams may think. So, all right, why don't you take us out east then? Tell us about the 4 teams over there.
Yeah, I think the most interesting team still continues to be the fairy tale season right now, the New England Patriots. I think I have enough trust in them at the moment in the way they're playing, the longest win streak in the league right now, to say, hey, let's move them up in front of 2 teams they've already beat into the contenders area. The Bills and the Bucks behind them. I think this is going to be very interesting, and we'll talk about these other two teams. We can talk about Buffalo now, but Buffalo plays Tampa, and one of these teams is probably going down in the next edition of this. It'll be interesting to see how that game plays out and who ends up making the journey down into playoff teams. Yep. But I think for New England's sake, the way that they're playing, the way they're just getting games done, it's not always the prettiest, but they're getting away, and they really don't have the hardest schedule the rest of the season either. I think we're going to see them in this area until they prove otherwise. So I'll leave them there. Buffalo again. I think they really need this upcoming game to go their way. So I'm sure they're prepping hard for that. And then we've got the always fun-filled Dolphins, who decide to show up and embarrass the heck out of their divisional rivals. There's really not a lot of places to move them, but let's go ahead and move them up let's reward them with moving them to the tail end of the pick 6 through 10, just for the sake of feel good for everyone involved. Yeah. And then we've got the Jets. And the Jets continue to be the Jets, and we'll just leave them right here towards the tail end. You know what? We'll even move them perhaps in front of the Titans, just so that I can say that I got to move somebody else. What do you think? Is there anything you think is too far off?
No, not at all. I mean, the back two teams in particular, like they got their wins, and that's good. Especially the Dolphins win looks really impressive, as it's the Bills, but it's one of those weird division rival. It feels like a fluke. And the same goes with the Jets. Like, you're not going to get 2 special teams touchdowns every week. You probably won't get that again for the next couple of years. So I just don't trust it. Like, if it was Justin Fields came out and threw for 250 yards and then, ran for another 50 and their run game looked good outside of him, I'd be like, wow, maybe something different happened. But no, it was more of the same. I just don't trust it. Yeah, and to be honest with people watching, the Thursday night game has already happened, and the Jets were more of the same. Their run game was solid, but it's trying to do more of the fair share than it has any real right to do. So they've got to figure out that passing offense, and they're probably not going to figure it out this year. So we'll see. Okay, well, next, let's go south then and get into those 4 squads.
Yeah, there's the Colts. Colts stay steady, I think, here in the Super Bowl favorites. They still are the team that no one wants to see on their schedule. I think that there's probably not tons to say about them. They just look great. They're continuing forward motion there. Jacksonville continues to upset me week to week. I have high hopes for this team every week, and then some weeks they look pretty decent. They play against the Texans and found a way to lose that one in a high scoring affair, which I really was not particularly anticipating. But they sure got into one. So yeah, I think that they're here in potential wild cards, but I also think that they have a chance of falling if they're not careful. They need to get right back in the saddle of that. So then we've got Houston, who did generate quite a few points in their win against Jacksonville. It was a pretty wild game in many regards. Division games tend to be. So, they've got positive momentum for the moment. Can they sustain it at all? So we'll see as they march forward. I'm not quite ready to move them anywhere, but they're on the verge. And then there's the Titans, who I'm almost happy to say for them, I haven't moved anywhere. I think for what they've got and where they are right now, this is probably not the worst place. They put up 20 points on the Chargers, made it an interesting game at least. Again, I think that each week, hopefully, Cam is developing a little bit, getting a little better. I think that's the goal. Let's keep focusing on the long-term goal rather than the short-term outcome. So I'll leave them right there. Is there anybody you would move around?
No, not really. I know that, Houston just beat Jacksonville, but I don't trust backup quarterback. And then they were down like 29-10 at one point, I think, in that game. And so it's
bizarre.
It just, again, it felt like one of those unusual games. And I just don't entirely trust it. It happened. Good for the Texans, but it's I believe in the ceiling that is Davis Mills. And it's not very high. So that was about the best you're ever going to get from him. And it was good. That's great. But I just don't trust it to happen consistently. I know some people have even started an argument or a debate or whatever you want to call it about maybe they should keep him instead of CJ Stroud. And I think that's insane. But yeah, the Colts, they're on a tear still. Jonathan Taylor is trying his best to win MVP, and at this rate, I'm kind of hoping he wins it. But the Titans, the Titans are heading towards where they probably almost want to be, because first overall pick is going to give them enormous leverage to make their team better next year. And I think the primary issue they have is that their roster is just not good enough right now. It's not they don't have the right coach, or they don't have the right quarterback, or this or that or the other thing. It's they have holes everywhere. And so this will give them an opportunity moving into the offseason to try to really, really improve their team. So we'll see. But all right. Well, you ready to head out west then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'll take us west. A lot of great, a lot of interesting stories out there. 3 really good teams. And the Raiders, we got that real barn burner last Thursday between the Raiders and the Broncos. That just, I don't know what to think about either one of them. But it's a division match, and they just played ugly. The Broncos, I feel like, have had a couple of ugly games lately. And to me, they're kind of teetering in where they are right now. This week, they play against the Chiefs, which will be a great opportunity for them to right the ship. They've played pretty well against the Chiefs recently. So if they can keep that up, win this game, I'll be completely happy with them being where they are, or maybe even moving them up a bracket. I think for right now, I'd leave them right where they are toward the top of playoff. The Chiefs, obviously, losing this last week. Losing this last week. I mean, they may come down a little bit. I mean, I'll put them behind the Chargers, and subsequently, I'll move the Chargers up just a little bit, because they had a nice little win. So good for them. I mean, maybe even for the moment, I'll put the Chargers right in front of the Packers. I just feel like it's maybe just that's close between those two. But I'm one of those people that trust the Chiefs too much, and it's scars. It's like emotional scars, and so it's caused me to really trust that they're going to figure this out. But I'd still take them in front of either San Francisco or Pittsburgh at the moment. So we'll see what they do this coming week. To be some more good games, particularly again the Denver-Kansas City matchup. But yeah, for now, I think this is just about right. What do you think of the West?
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot of fun, right? It's a very competitive division. The Broncos, like you were saying, they've kind of lost some steam. Like, they're still finding ways to get it done, but it's not as convincing as it was for a while there in the middle of the run. It'll be very interesting to see how they fare against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, to me, are just up and down, which is unusual to say at this time in the season for the Chiefs. I don't know. I feel like if the Chiefs lose this game to the Broncos, I think that's going to make their season very, very challenging going forward. I think that the Chargers. Yeah, I don't know. I keep going back and forth with them. They look amazing one week and okay the next. I don't know. So we'll see how that plays out. But no, I like where they're at in this. I think that's a pretty good spot. You've already got them. There's some potential for some shift here. Kansas City wins against Denver. I'll be interested to see what you want to do as far as shifting those around in those playoff team positions. But it's like they're all that caliber of team, one way or the other. It's just left, right, middle. Who knows?
Yeah, we've said in previous weeks that, it's the difference between maybe going all the way down to, well, right now I'd say this is about where I'd cut it off. The Seahawks all the way up to the Colts. There's hardly any daylight between them. All these teams, I feel like, are very similar strength. There's just minor little nuances to the trust I have in one team over another, or that you have over another. At least that's kind of the way I feel. And these teams aren't way behind them, but a little bit behind them. So it's we almost need another row, but there's already maybe too many rows. So here we go. But all right, well, cool, man. But yeah, like you said, there'll be some good games this week that'll give us a bit more clarity, at least for a moment, until that clarity evaporates.
Disappears.
That's it for the AFC. Let's move to the NFC, going back to the North. No reason to move Detroit. They had an incredibly convincing win. I believe it was just Washington, but still, like, they smashed the team they were supposed to smash. They just, they had 550, I think, yards of offense or something like that, which is just ludicrous. I think it's like 2 games worth of Cardinals games. So they're right where they belong, I think. You got the Bears, and I think we're maybe of the same mind that the Bears are looking good. They had a weird, clutch win that they put together this last week. Credit to Caleb Williams and company for putting that together at the end and not letting the game run away from them. But two things. One, I guess I'm still holding out like a little bit of lack of trust. I don't know what you want to call it, misgivings. And two, the NFC picture and NFC playoff picture is pretty loaded already. There are already 7 teams above this line, if you can kind of imagine where my little scroller is. And there's not really room for them right now. And who am I supposed to take out? Well, I'm not super far from taking San Francisco out, and we'll get to them, but they've got a really easy game this week. The Bears, they've just got an uphill battle. Now, they might be able to catch the Packers. They might actually be able to do it. Packers are kind of sliding, but we'll get to that. The Packers' weird loss to Philadelphia, who's a Super Bowl favorite, and another in our 2-in-1 week 10-7 games. I don't know what I really think of that game. It's too unconventional for me to think there was really something to learn from this game. So I will say there's the beginnings of not a script, but a formula to dealing with Green Bay, or at least a pattern or something, whatever you want to call it, which is teams with really good defensive lines, give them a really hard time. You had Cleveland earlier this year that held them to 10 points. You got the Eagles now holding them to 7. You've got, and this week they get the Giants, who again have a really good defensive line. So I doubt that the Giants are able to win this game. I think we talked about that in our picks, but it could be a little bit of trouble for them. Now, granted, they don't have to play many more teams with amazing defensive fronts, but in the playoffs they might, because both of these teams do, and we'll talk about them too. But so I think the Bears, they're on the verge of maybe catching the Packers and taking their spot up here, but you need one of these teams to drop out for me to make room. I am happier with the Bears than I am with the Jags right now, so I'm going to put them in front.
100% agree.
They're the best team just outside the bubble for the moment until Baltimore catches them. So, but yeah, who did I not talk about here? Minnesota. Purple team. Minnesota, that weird loss to Baltimore. Again, they had 3 turnovers. It's going to be hard to win those games. Baltimore is streaking right now. I think that Minnesota is still kind of trapped here. You talked earlier about the Steelers being, they're just kind of hovering. They're flatlined. They're win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1 kind of thing. And that feels kind of like what Minnesota is. Their defense is still playing quite well most of the time, but their offense is kind of mediocre this year. So the J.J. McCarthy experiment continues. Maybe we'll get some more clarity. He's trying this alter ego thing. I don't think a whole lot of it yet. I'm really not interested in moving them much right now. If you wanted to say they were in front of the Texans, I'd understand. Sure. Why not?
Straight off.
Get out of the way, Texans. But it's relatively close. They're 2 games away from being potential wild cards. They're 2 games away from being, at the tail end of this row. So who knows with Minnesota? But I think I'm pretty happy with them right there. What do you think of the North?
And the North is a battleground, right? It's which is fun, right? It's a lot of fun in that regard. I'm rooting like no tomorrow for the Lions in their upcoming game, but that should be a really good game. It should be against the Eagles. We'll see how that plays out. This should be a great game. It's the Bears and the Vikings playing, so another division ones. Vikings have already won the first round of that fight, so we'll see who comes out on top of that one. But I mean, it should be very interesting. And then Green Bay, just week to week, makes me wonder what all is going on there. I like your analysis of that and just trying to see how that plays out over the rest of the season. But the Bears are always a quandary because it's like they've got a lot of wins. They do a good job of beating teams they should beat. But when they play good teams, the Vikings, who are not exactly what I would have labeled as a great team or any of that, but the Lions, the Ravens, even like competitive good teams, they lose. They do a great job of beating all the teams like the Cowboys and the Raiders and all of that sort of stuff. They do a good job of that. So they need some convincing wins on their resume, I think, heading towards the playoffs. And the next 4 games, they're going to have probably the best competition they've seen all season. I think we're going to learn a ton about how far, there's a lot of talk about how Caleb has progressed this year. I think we'll be able to see a lot of how far that progression is in the next 4 games. So I'm excited. I think this is a really fun division. It should be a lot of fun this weekend to see how they go. But I agree with your assessment on this, that they're in a good spot as far as divisions go.
Yeah, they're kind of the NFC Patriots in some ways, but with slightly less success even. But there's the big question on the Patriots, as we mentioned earlier, about who they beat. But Yeah, I get it. All right, well then take me out east.
Oh, the East. Well, there's the Eagles. The Eagles are just chilling up there, and they should be. They find ways to win.
Yeah.
It's not certainly not always pretty as of this last week, but they get it done. This week there'll be a real challenge with the Lions. They've beat teams or played teams that are in this kind of caliber and won, like the Bucks. It'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to this one. We'll see how they play out. There's not a lot to lose, really. If they lose to the Lions, I don't really think that that's a huge statement, honestly. It just means they're in this group. Unless they get run over, then we can have a conversation. I'm all for it. Then we've got Dallas. Dallas has been healing up. If you're a Dallas fan, you're excited to go play the Raiders and just see, like, okay, great. What is this new defensive tackle acquisition we got? This new middle linebacker. I think if you're really a Cowboys fan, you're probably more interested in DeMarvion Overshown, and is he going to be able to come back? How much does that change our defense? So there's definitely some intrigue there, but it's like, and we're still 3-5-1. So trying to tipper those expectations a bit. Washington's still reeling with Mariota playing. I think they did an admirable job, playing in their last game, but they've had a rough season in the quarterback department, and they definitely need to do some structured training with their current, with Jaden about, like, hey, this is when we run and this is when we go down, so that we don't experience that ever again. And then there's the poor Giants, who are oft or always injured, so they're doing great there by themselves. So it's a beat up division. I feel like in the East, it's been a very injury ridden season for 3 of the 4 teams in this division. So it makes it probably less interesting to anyone who is not a fan in the East. So, but that's where I'm. So I really wouldn't move anyone. If I was going to move anyone, I don't think I would move anyone. I think the Cowboys in Washington, that's what I was looking at, was the Cowboys in Washington. I was like, you could move them left or right, like right. I don't think you can move many left, but right. I just think they're all in the same general category there. So I wouldn't move them. But yeah, what do you think?
It's small moves, if any moves at all. I mean, New York almost had that win over the Bears, but the Bears came back right at the end. Good win for them. So, I mean, they're still the New York, like their own tier is still kind of it's the right place for them. But where they're going to be in the draft, this kind of indicates as well, at least the current trajectory. If I was going to move either Dallas or Washington, I'd probably move Dallas left one and Washington right one. Because I do feel like you gain just an inch of separation from them. And I might take you over the Falcons right now. Washington, like they kind of competed for a minute. It felt like, gosh, I may be remembering a different game with Detroit. But in the end, they just got skunked. So, and I mean, I would almost say, are trending up ever so slightly because of coming off the bye week, reintroducing DeMarvion Overshown, and then the addition, and we'll see what he does, of Quentin Williams. Like there's a tangible increase to what you should be. Washington just keeps getting more beat up, and there's nothing really indicating that they're going to trend upward. So if it were me, I'd be moving them ever so slightly, maybe the beginning of a curve that might lead to more. I still think, Dallas winning the playoffs is still a long shot, just statistically, historically, whatever you want to call it. But there's the beginnings of something there that could help in an area where you needed some help. But I get it. It's not a massive change. So Wait, am I wrong about who Washington played to? Now my brain is just going crazy.
Oh, you had it right.
I was right.
I
get all these teams mixed up. Next, let's go south and tell us about the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay had that kind of heartbreaking loss up for them. I think I feel like they're just so injured that they're it's an uphill battle with highly competitive teams. It was a big game for New England as far as who are we kind of a game, but I feel like it's been rough. They don't get any they don't get any help this week against Buffalo. It's going to be a hard game. I still think it's a really good football game, but we may have to move them or the Bills, either one, potentially down into playoff teams next week, depending upon how that rolls out. I'll give them a pass this week, and we'll go from there. Carolina continues to be a roller coaster of fun. 1 week they beat the Packers. The next week they lose to the Saints.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to get a real read on them. They're an exciting team. They've got a lot of young talent. They're really fun to watch. But you just have no idea week to week. And they're going to go play the Falcons, which are roughly the exact same. You have no idea which one's going to turn up. Carolina, I think Carolina could come out of that the victor, but they're still rather uncertain. And Atlanta, they're like we just said, they're very, very similar in that their youth. They've got some really exciting youth. They just can't put it all together yet. I'll be interested to see how they come out of their next game, but I don't think I mean, you could move them a little bit to the right. I would not take them over either of the teams on the left, but for the moment, I'd just leave them right where they are. Because this week, the good Falcons may show up, and you'd be like, oh, they're great. And then there's the good old Saints. The Saints went ahead and beat up their division rival. What I found was a very surprising win. Not just they won, but kind of how they won was really kind of surprising in that. But with that being said, they're still in the grouping that they should be in, and probably want to be in at the end of the season. So, I'll probably leave them there. There's two really kind of exciting teams in this division, and then a team that's just beat up and needs a minute to recover or figure out a solution to that high injury at wide receiver kind of problem. So it's just, I guess that's how I see this whole division. So what do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, about that, I'd probably, again, if it were me, I'd probably take the Panthers out for the moment and put them in missing playoff teams, because that's kind of an ugly loss. I know it's division and all that, but like it was just ugly. And so, and the Saints, it reminded me suddenly of the beginning of the season where the Saints were challenging some teams. They were punching up pretty hard, and they were losing, but they were still challenging some of these teams. Tyler Shuck's showing a little bit of grit and all that, but maybe they're one more step away from climbing up to pick 6 through 10 kind of territory. But there's some hope there. I think for the future, you're looking at Shuck and hoping just show us enough so that next year we're thinking build around this guy. And then see where things can go from there. But everyone else, I think it makes sense. Tampa Bay's teetering right at the edge of that Super Bowl contenders group. And Atlanta's just reeling. I think they're just waiting for year 3 in the hopes that Michael Penix Jr. in particular really takes off. It's not all on him. I'm trying to suggest that it is. But I mean, their pass rush has just gone crazy. They flipped the script and went from the worst pass rush in the league last year to top 10 this year, which I think is incredible. That's what I was hoping the Cardinals would do, but they actually did it. So power to them there. They challenged the Colts, give them everything they could handle. If you can get 7 sacks on that offensive line, you've got a great pass rush. So they've got some strengths. I kind of maintain what I said before, though, about I could see Dallas being right in front of them. But again, I've used the expression, there's not a lot of daylight between them before, and it persists through this example. So, but yeah, there's still a lot of intrigue with the South, but it's more, most of it is moving into the offseason. And then there's the hope that the Bucs can get healthy at the right time. So in the playoffs, they can really put out a good show. So we'll see. All right. Well, I'll finish things off then, I guess, with the West, heading out to NFC West. And first of all, Cardinals, we're getting back-to-back weeks of division matchups. So last week we had 2 games. Cardinals played the Seahawks, Rams played the 49ers. And this week we're getting almost like a losers playoffs or something like that. So the Niners and the Cardinals are playing, and then we'll get the champions, who's probably going to be the champions of this division. The Rams and the Seahawks are going to be playing. Again, real quick, I don't think super highly of the Niners right now. I think that their injuries have taken some toll. Word on the street right now is that both Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall might play this weekend, which is something like we tend to have that effect on teams when they're about to play us. They're like, wow, look at that. We're magically getting healthier. It's just a great time for them to show that they're really good because we're really bad. The Cardinals, I have so little faith in them. It's incredible. And then they did exactly what I thought they would do. Now, again, we've played the Niners relatively close and all that, and so I could see us making this a competitive game. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to miss it. I mean, we are right at the edge of pick 6 through 10. Like, I'd probably put us in front of the Browns if I was going to move us down. And if we lose this week, particularly in convincing fashion, I'm almost certainly going to. But the Niners, they've got injuries of their own. And so they're kind of just trying to stay in the playoffs because you've got teams like the Bears chasing them. You've got the Panthers a couple of games behind, but they're chasing them. So they've got to watch their back. So we'll see. But then there's the other two teams. And I have to acknowledge something. Got kind of called out in the comments here, and I thought about it for a second. I was like, you know what? This guy's absolutely right. I have been maybe letting my NFC West biases prevent me from putting LA and Seattle where they belong. And quite frankly, they're playing, you really just stop and look at them. They're playing like two of the best teams in the country. So for right now, I'm going to do this. Get out of the way, Patriots. And I'm going to put you right there. I think they're playing like the best first teams out of Super Bowl favorites. Now, this week they play each other. And I think winner of that most likely will go straight up to actual Super Bowl favorites. We also seeing Lions and Eagles. Maybe that'll be an opportunity for us to bring one of those teams out, and we might get some actual turnover up there. But yeah, the Rams and Seahawks are playing incredibly well, and they are heading. I mean, one of those teams could pretty logically be the one seed in the AFC. In the AFC, that's a stretch, but the one seed in the NFC, in fact. And so I think that they belong up here. And we'll see who loses may come right back down. It'll kind of depend on the manner of this loss. But I don't say I'm optimistic. I hate everything about this. But if I'm being as realistic as I can, I think this is a move that needs to happen. And to be honest, right now, if I'm just looking at it and I'm taking those two teams, I'm like, okay, they're going to play the Patriots, the Bills, or the Bucks. I would take either the Rams or the Seahawks over all three of those teams every time. So that was a long rant from me. Thank you for putting up with it. And I know that was nearly as painful for you to see me do that as it was for me. So what did you think of those moves?
Well, I get it. Like I get what you're saying there. And starting with the Cardinals and 49ers. I think that's still kind of in anybody's game. Cardinals have still hung in against a lot of teams, and the 49ers face ongoing injury and now maybe return of people. And it is amazing with all the injuries that they're like the number one passing offense in terms of yards is mind blowing. I don't even know how it's possible. With the Rams and the Seahawks, this week is everyone's dream in answering this question. Which team is more dangerous and who's going to win? I get the argument that they should be in these top 8 teams, right? And in this conversation, I definitely get this. Both teams have played really well in their division. There's a very good division, but their really good games are in their division. Looking at who are the competitive teams they've played outside of the division, Seahawks have played the Steelers, which they beat. Steelers is not exactly the team as we look at this that we think they're a good team. They're the tail end of that good team. They lost to the Bucks, and they lost to the Bucks when they were injured and wide receivers on top of that. So it's like, okay, so there's positives and negatives here. The Rams beat the Colts, and I think that's the real big thing. They did lose to the Eagles convincingly. Yeah. So I think that there's an argument to be made that they should kind of be in this conversation. I don't think it's a shoo-in that they're like, hey, we're one of the top 5 teams per se yet. I want to see what they do outside of their divisions. Both teams have some games that should be good coming up. Seahawks will play the Colts sometime later in the season. The Rams still have the Lions to play. There'll be some other chances here to figure this out. Plus, the duel between the two of these is going to be fascinating for us this season. I don't hate it. I mean, I do, but I think it's understandable. I think there's a point here about being fair. Again, I just want to see these teams do well against competitive teams not in their own division. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting weekend. A lot of fun games. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. This is our power rankings after 10 weeks. There's been more changes than I thought there would be at this point. I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought things might settle down and you might not get big climbers and things like that. But I was dead wrong. Teams kind of turned a corner. A lot of teams turned a corner and changed some things. So we'll see moving forward. It should be a really good week. Big thank you to everyone who's subscribed already. We hit just in the last couple of weeks our goal that we had set for getting to 100 subscribers. Now we're trying to double that and get up to 2. So we'd appreciate any newcomers. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. It helps out the channel and is trying to grow here. So thank you again. We hope that you join us again for our next video, and we will see you next week.